The story starts with our main character chilling at Haitian hotel. She's gazing out the window, watching the rain pour down. Suddenly, a voice pops up, asking if she enjoys rainy days. The guy behind the voice adds that he's also a fan of rainy weather. So, then he says he can stroll with her in the rain. From what he heard, her mom is really into her, which is why she keeps setting up those top-notch matchmaking meetings. Then he throws in her name, Miss Eesuh, and wonders if she's thinking about tying the knot soon. You know, since 27 is supposedly the prime age for it. And just like that, he drops the bomb that he's into her. So, let me introduce you to our main character, Suh Yoon. She's got quite the family background. Her grandpa used to be a big shot, like a former prime minister, and her dad, Yoon, is knee-deep in politics. He's all about trying to become president someday. Maybe because of her fancy family tree, Eesuh's is a bit intense and can be pretty exhausting to deal with. So, there's gossip flying around that maybe Eesuh's dad had a fling on the side, and she's the result. She wasn't really keen on showing up, but somehow she got lured in. Then this guy starts chatting her up, asking if she's into painting or sculpting when it comes to art. Eesuh tells him she actually studied art history, and right now, she's working as a curator at the Haitian Art Center. So, this guy mentions he's tight with the Haitian group, but here's the kicker, he's clueless when it comes to art. He suggests Eesuh could give him some art lessons on her day off. But Eesuh just stays quiet, not saying a word. So, this guy keeps on rambling, asking Eesuh about the museum's location, wondering if it's in Wonju. Then he suggests popping by next Wednesday. But Eesuh, clearly unimpressed by all his chatter, drops her teacup and tells him straight up that he's making decisions without consulting her. So, then this guy tries to smooth things over, apologizing if he upset her. He claims he's not usually like this, but he's just really into her. He asks if that's cool with her. But Eesuh throws him for a loop, saying it won't work out. He's surprised and asks why, and she straight up tells him she doesn't see a future with him. Then she gets up, says sorry for not beating around the bush, and admits she's not good at pretending or talking in circles. She's just not feeling the connection, plain and simple. The guy gets all mad and demands to know why she bothered coming if she knew it was going to be a waste of time. Eesuh fires back, saying it was just some family-arranged appointment. He snaps back, saying she's got even less integrity than he thought. He keeps going, accusing Eesuh of going to all these matchmaking events to cover up the fact that she might be the result of some affair. He can't wrap his head around why she acts so high and mighty. Is she embarrassed now that she's been called out? He thinks she should have acted more decently instead of strutting around like she owns the place. No wonder people say she's clueless about where she belongs. So, then Eesuh agrees with him, admitting she's lucky to see his true colors. She even calls him out by his full name, Mr. Sunghyun Kim, and suggests they call off this whole match. With that, she just walks away, leaving him standing there, totally shocked. So, at the Korea International Airport, you've got Haitian Group's third son, Taejoh Ryu, chilling in his car with a cigarette hanging from his mouth. Then his driver pipes up, saying the vice president is waiting for him at the hotel. Taejoh casually asks if it's the younger brother. So, then Taejoh Ryu wonders aloud when they're gonna start bidding for the downtown duty-free shop. The driver tells him it's set for September. He adds that this time, the Haitian Industrial Development Department is planning to go for it solo. Taejoh then asks if he means Jinhan Ryu, his uncle, who always dreamed of this opportunity. So, Taejoh Ryu checks in, asking how his older brother is doing. The driver responds, saying there's always stuff to think about, but he's been getting ready for this gig for ages, so it should all work out fine. Taejoh then frowns and mentions how his brother's always super careful with money, so he's probably got everything under control. The driver chimes in, mentioning that the vice president has big hopes for Taejoh Ryu. Taejoh brushes it off, saying he's not so sure. He can already imagine the guy nagging him. Then he realizes it's been a minute since he's seen Mr. Park. Mr. Park confirms it, mentioning he's been living in the US for the past 8 years. Taejoh Ryu nods along with Mr. Park, agreeing that time really does zoom by, and he's pretty sure a lot has changed. Meanwhile, Eesuh stands outside, watching the rain and feeling down, thinking about what the guy said earlier. She wonders to herself, what should she even tell her mom about all this? Just then, Taejoh Ryu steps out of his car, looking sharp, catching her eye as she stares at him. Mr. Park reminds Taejoh Ryu that smoking isn't allowed indoors. Taejoh nods, saying he's aware. Eesuh, meanwhile, has flashbacks of him and simply blurts out how much she really despises that habit. Once they're inside the building, Mr. Park informs Taejoh Ryu that the vice president is waiting for him. After they're finished, the two of them have a dinner reservation at Haesungwon restaurant in Taejoh's hometown, Jangcheobdong. Mr. Park adds that regarding Taejoh Ryu's accommodations, he can crash in one of the private villas available there. Taejoh smiles, saying he's already aware of that. But Mr. Park insists, mentioning that the vice president specifically instructed him to make sure Taejoh knows all this. Taejoh Ryu casually remarks that everyone should relax a bit. After all, he's not a little kid. He walks into the office of the vice president, Taejoh Ryu, the second son of HS International. Taejoh stands up, acknowledging Taejoh's arrival and noting that the trip must have been exhausting for him. Taejoh heads straight to the bar area, mentioning he's parched. He asks his brother if he wants a drink too, but his brother frowns, insisting he should take a seat. Taejoh complains that his brother is being so chilly, considering it's been a while since they last hung out. He takes a seat and asks what his brother wants. Taejoh's older brother drops some papers on the table and tells him to check them out. Taejoh glances over the documents and remarks about the downtown duty-free shop bid, mentioning he's got a grand plan ready to roll. He asks his brother if he really thought Taejoh wouldn't know how to handle it. His brother just shrugs it off, saying he's just being impatient, and it's good to see Taejoh finally being useful. Taejoh gives him a disapproving look as he mentions that since they've footed the bill for his education, he should be pulling his weight in the family. Otherwise, he doesn't have the right to enjoy their food or spend their money. He explains that this has always been the way their family operates. The Haitian group started in a dingy alley and was built from scratch by its founder, Taejoh Ryu. Later, his oldest son, Sungwon Ryu, expanded the company to become the biggest corporation in Korea. Then, Sungwon's 3 sons continued to grow and run the conglomerate. The oldest son, Taejoh Ryu, leads the Haitian group and also oversees Haitian electronics. The second son, Taejoh Ryu, got appointed as the vice president of HS International. Meanwhile, the third son, Taejoh Ryu, recently came back to Korea after finishing his MBA in professional business management in just a year. In a family like theirs, the rules and expectations are crystal clear, and there's zero room for rebellion. All 3 brothers grew up with these strict family traditions, feeling like their roles are carved into their very souls. Maybe that's why Taejoh feels this sudden urge to break free after all this time. Taejoh responds, questioning why he should bother striving for success when he doesn't feel obligated like his older brother and Taejoh. Taejoh counters, comparing him to animals who show loyalty to their owners in exchange for food. He insists that Taejoh needs to prove his worth as part of the Haitian group, assigning him the task of preparing the bid for the downtown duty-free shop. At Eesuh's house, she calls out to her mom, Song-gi Choi, who's the wife of National Assembly member Dae Myung-yoon, saying she's back. Eesuh then mentions how nice the flowers smell. Her mom responds, suggesting Eesuh could lend a hand. Eesuh joins her mom, and her mom brings up hearing that today's matchmaking event didn't go as planned. Her mom keeps going, mentioning that working at an MI asset group isn't a bad gig. Her dad was really banking on it panning out. She reminds Eesuh that flowers only have value when they're still fragrant, wilted ones get tossed aside. So, she should step up her game. Even if she can't do a ton for the family, she should chip in however she can. Eesuh agrees, saying she'll give it her best shot. Her mom notices she must be worn out, so she suggests Eesuh should head to her room and get some rest. Eesuh listens and retreats to her room, her face looking really downcast. At a restaurant where Taejoh is hanging out with some guys, one of them pipes up, saying Eesuh needs to learn where she stands. According to him, she's not even that great looking, yet she's acting all arrogant for no reason. He thinks she should be grateful that he even agreed to meet her, but instead, she's acting like she's better than everyone else. Another guy chimes in, saying Suh Yoon is pretty impressive, especially considering she even broke up with Sung Hyun Kim. Then, someone else mentions they heard she was born from an affair. As they keep gossiping about her, one of them turns to Taejoh and asks if he also went to Honsung High. If he did, he must know her. They're talking about Suh Yoon. As the guy keeps on explaining, Taejoh insists he doesn't know her. But the guy urges him to think about it, bringing up more about her and the recent date she had. Suddenly, it dawns on Taejoh, the girl he saw earlier, could it really be Eesuh, the outcast from Honsung High? Another guy jumps in, saying he heard she's never been in a relationship before. Then, the engaged guy wonders aloud if he should try his luck, mentioning he's into girls with pure hearts. The guy who went on a date with her earlier suggests he should have sweet-talked her into bed and taken her virginity. Right then, Taejoh pipes up, suggesting they make a bet. Whoever can knock Eesuh down a notch or two gets one wish granted. They've got a month to do it, and they have to bring her back to Earth by the third date. In Wonju, Gangwon-do, at the Haitian Art Center, Eesuh walks in and heads straight to check out one of the art pieces. It reads, "Tomorrow is another day, paradise will be yours." Outside the art center, Taejoh steps out of his car and remarks that the place hasn't changed a bit. As he climbs the steps, he reads some words about eternal love, but he just laughs it off, wondering if there are actually people who believe in that stuff. Inside, he impatiently checks his watch, waiting for someone to arrive. Suddenly, he spots Eesuh and wonders why she's at the art center. He checks out her name tag and wonders if she's an employee here. Taking in every detail of her, he can't help but smile to himself. He thinks it's pretty wild that they'd bump into each other like this. Finally, the girl Taejoh has been waiting for arrives, calling him Appa. She asks if he's been waiting a while and apologizes for the traffic. To make up for it, she offers to buy him coffee. As she asks about his coffee preferences, Taejoh's gaze stays locked on Eesuh as they walk together. At the restaurant, the lady remarks that Taejoh hasn't changed a bit and mentions how much she's missed him. She asks how he's been, but he just gives a bland good without much enthusiasm. She goes on to say she's a frequent visitor to the art center and loves everything about it. When she heard Taejoh was coming, she hurried right over to see him. Taejoh responds with a simple yeah, and inwardly, she thinks he's still the coolest guy around. She then asks him if he's seeing anyone special or if he's thinking about settling down. Taejoh frowns and says he's not dating anyone. She tries to keep the conversation going by asking if he has any hobbies, but Taejoh just shrugs and says he doesn't, all the while glancing at the time. She keeps asking what he enjoys doing, and he fires back, asking if she's curious. Moving closer, he mentions he's into anything that gets his adrenaline pumping and pushes boundaries physically. Then, he leans in and suggests they do something together, but she doesn't say a word. Finally, he stands up, saying it was good catching up after so long. As he heads off, she mentions if he's at least going to stop by and see the director. He responds that his mom didn't come into work today, and tells her to have a good time, leaving her irritated. Walking inside, he mutters to himself about the cursed idea of marriage, feeling like he just wasted precious time he can't afford to lose. He goes on, mentioning that despite the unexpected turn of events, who would have guessed that Eesuh is actually working at the Haitian center managed by his mom. Then, he approaches the receptionist and asks her if she could do him a favor. Taejoh heads over to check out the same art piece Eesuh had been eyeing earlier, and then he hears a voice that sounds like Eesuh's, saying she heard he was searching for her. He turns to see her and asks if she knows who he is. She responds that she knows who he is, he's director Jong Joo-soo's son. He retorts, pointing out that she's talking to him without any honorifics, which he finds pretty bold. She fires back, saying he's not her boss. He brushes it off, saying, whatever. Then, he tells her to explain the art to him, wanting to hear what she has to say, but with a touch of flirtatiousness. She nods and steps closer to the art. She explains that the piece was made in azulejos by a Portuguese painter named Antonio Castelo Saramago. Then, she keeps on sharing more details about the artwork. He chimes in with some facts about the painter too, and then smirks, saying he knows that much too. She keeps on talking, and he interrupts, asking her what's up. He reminds her that he asked her to interpret the piece, not to give him a history lesson. He's more interested in hearing her thoughts about the artwork, rather than listening to what others have said about it. Then, he throws out a question, asking her what she thinks paradise looks like. After a minute or two of locking eyes, she starts to speak. She describes paradise as being anywhere but here, a place devoid of people, where you can be completely alone. Taejoh interjects, summarizing it as basically the end of the world. Then, he adds that he thought she got hired here without knowing anything, but she seems to be good at reciting memorized information. He moves closer to her and compliments her, saying he enjoyed listening to her. He gives her a sarcastic good job and calls her a doormat. She retorts, asking who he's calling a doormat. Ignoring her, he starts to smoke. She snaps at him, yelling that he should know this is a non-smoking area and demands that he put it out immediately. Ignoring her protests, he lights up the cigarette and starts with a jab, saying he's heard she's pretty stuck up. He mentions the rumors about her attending matchmaking meetups all over the city, questioning if they're true. As Eesuh coughs from the smoke, she thinks to herself that he doesn't know anything about her. Then, she fires back at him, sarcastically asking if she's supposed to attend matchmaking meetups with him, given how stuck up she apparently is. He glares at her, throws his cigarette away, and declares that's why he's going to knock her down a notch or two. Getting closer, he shocks her by asking if she wants to hook up. He suggests that maybe if they had sex, it would humble her. Eesuh, taken aback, asks him if he's lost his mind. She begins to walk away, saying if they're done talking about the piece, she's leaving. He reaches out and grabs her hand to stop her, insisting that the next time they meet, they'll end up sleeping together. Angrily, she pulls her hand away and bids him goodbye. As she walks off, Taejoh watches her with an annoyed expression on his face. As Eesuh retreats to a corner, she replays the encounter in her mind, regretting her engagement with him. She frowns, muttering insults at him under her breath. Nearby, she overhears voices discussing Taejoh. Some of the workers are saying he's the coolest among his brothers. One of them mentions that the woman Taejoh was with at the cafe earlier is from the Hankyung Ilbo family. They continue gossiping and giggling among themselves. Inwardly, Eesuh tells herself she shouldn't dwell on it. She heads back to her desk, and just as she's about to sit down, her phone rings. She picks it up, and the caller identifies himself as Sunghyun Kim, causing her eyes to widen in surprise. At the judo center, Taejoh is sparring with his brother, but he's clearly getting beaten. His brother asks if he's taking it easy on him because it's been a while. He reminds Taejoh of his past achievements, mentioning how he won silver medals in the national judo competition in the men's high school division. Taejoh responds angrily, telling him to shut up. His brother wonders why he's reacting that way, noting that their grandfather was really proud of him back then. Taejoh calls out his brother, telling him to stop making things up. He reminds him of the day he beat him up and broke 2 of his ribs. Taejoh takes him down and comments on how his brother seems pretty relaxed, lost in his own thoughts. He stretches out his hand and admits that the more he gets to know him, the more he realizes what a jerk he is. He just can't understand what his sister-in-law saw in him that made her want to marry him. Hung stands up and states the obvious, saying it's because of love. He then throws Taejoh to the ground. Just as Taejoh is about to insult him, Hung interrupts, suggesting they call it quits. Taejoh insists on one more round, but Hung advises against overdoing it. He tells Taejoh to get changed because he's booked a table for them at a restaurant. At the restaurant, Hyung comments on Taejoh's hearty appetite, asking if he wants his portion too. Taejoh declines, saying he doesn't want anyone else's stuff. Hyung remarks that Taejoh never liked touching anything that wasn't his. Then, he brings up hearing about Taejoh meeting up with Jihyun, wondering if he's dating now. Taejoh expresses frustration, questioning if their mom said something again. Hyung explains that he's the only bachelor left in the family, so it's normal for their mom to be concerned. Taejoh points out that 2 out of her 3 sons are already married, so he wonders why he has to follow suit. Hyung explains that starting a family would allow him to settle down. Taejoh abruptly stands up, telling him to stay out of his personal life. He declares that he has no intention of dating anyone, getting married, or settling down. He doesn't want to be bothered with such lofty ideas, he's perfectly content being by himself. Hyung calls out to Taejoh, telling him he should be happy because he knows he can. Taejoh, feeling annoyed, tells him to shut up and leaves the room. Meanwhile, at the same restaurant, Eesuh is seated with the guy she went on a date with earlier. He asks her if it was tough getting there, mentioning that he's sure the drive must have been tiring. Eesuh reassures him that she's okay. He admits that he was rude the last time and feels the need to apologize to her in person to ease his guilt. She responds, saying it's alright, but inwardly she acknowledges that if it weren't for her mother, she wouldn't have come here or met him in the first place. After a while of silence, he comments on how gracefully she eats, guessing she hears that a lot. She responds, saying it's actually the first time she's heard that, while inwardly wondering why he's acting this way. He continues, admitting he was rude during their last meeting, which is why he wants to try again and promises to treat her well. She thinks to herself that he must be up to something. Then, she tells him that she also thinks she was rude that day. However, she explains that what happened that day and his offer are separate matters. She apologizes but says she can't accept his proposal. She still feels like there's no connection between them. As she leaves, he calls out to her to wait a minute. He catches up with her and admits that he knows he hurt her feelings. That's why he's promising to treat her better this time. She responds, saying she'd appreciate it if he stopped asking her out. He then grabs her hand and insists that he already apologized, didn't he? She pleads with him, asking him not to be like this. He responds, urging her to give him one more chance. Then, a voice interrupts, asking what's going on. It's Taejoh, who asks them if it's a date. Taejoh notices how tightly her hand is held, then he looks at her and casually remarks, "So, we meet again." Eesuh angrily pulls her hand away from the grip and declares that she's leaving. After Eesuh exits, Taejoh tells Sunghyun Kim that his attempts to win her over didn't pan out, then he walks away. Outside in the parking lot, Eesuh wonders why Taejoh had to see her in that situation. As she tries to open her car door, she struggles because her hand hurts from the tight grip. Feeling frustrated, she mutters to herself that nothing seems to go her way. Just then, Taejoh calls out her name and approaches her. He asks if she enjoyed her meal because she looks satisfied. Then, he leans in and whispers in her ear, asking if her date didn't go very well. He lends a hand to open the car door, but she quickly pulls away and hops into the car, mentioning she's running late and needs to leave. Taejoh holds the door and remarks that this is their second encounter. She glances at him, and he advises her to drive home safely. At her home, as she climbs the stairs, she mutters about how exhausted she feels and how fed up she is with everything. She wonders aloud how much longer she has to endure this kind of life. Suddenly, she freezes upon hearing a voice saying that she's going to find a husband for her this year and take care of her. The guy in the room questions Eesuh's mother, asking if she really believes she's taking care of Eesuh by making her attend matchmaking meetups twice a week. He thinks it's too much and wonders why she's pushing so hard. He criticizes her approach, saying she can't just pair her daughter off randomly as if she's matching animals for breeding. Eesuh's presumed brother, Lee Hun-yoon, the son of National Assembly member Dae Myung-yoon, continues, saying that other people don't view her actions positively. He questions if their mother will do the same thing to him, but he asserts that she won't. He goes on to say that Eesuh is a part of the family, she's his little sister and her daughter. Their mom adds that every time she sees Eesuh's face, it feels like her world is falling apart. She still thinks of that cocktail waitress. Eesuh destroyed her family, and he can't even imagine how much of a nightmare it is for her to see Eesuh. The mom keeps saying she wishes Eesuh would just disappear from her sight. They should just stop it now. Then she leaves the room, and Lee Hun calls out to her, following her. They both then see Eesuh outside. The mother then tells her she heard she ruined yet another matchmaking meetup that he could hardly make time for. She asks what the heck is she even worth to this household, and then walks away. Lee Hun then calls Eesuh, and she says she's going to bed, smiling. As Eesuh takes her bath, she tells herself it's okay, her mom didn't say anything that wasn't true. Tears start streaming down her face as she admits she already knows this. She thought things would improve if she made an effort, and if that didn't work, she'd just adjust and get used to it. Now she feels so numb inside that nothing hurts her anymore. She's become someone nobody wants around. Then, she accidentally cuts herself and sits down, crying. She remembers it like it was yesterday, back in high school. She felt like she couldn't breathe, suffocating under the weight of everything. Her brother took her to Gyeongbok Palace, and in that moment, she felt truly alive. Her brother tells her she should let out her anger when she feels it and speak up if she doesn't like something. That night, she packed her bag and left home, feeling lost and unsure of where to go. After being away for 8 hours, she returned home. It was the first time she had a break from her usual life. Her mother didn't scold her for coming home after midnight, and she realized that even if she disappeared, her mother wouldn't bother looking for her. She didn't want to believe that was true. No one would worry about her, but her brother praised her, saying she did well. He encouraged her not to hold back too much and assured her she could do it. These words stayed in Eesuh's heart for a long time. Back in the present, Eesuh sits down to breakfast with her brother. She mentions a charity event happening on Saturday. He confirms it's on Saturday evening. She wonders if she has to go, and he responds affirmatively, saying he can't go alone. He suggests she sees it as an opportunity to showcase herself, make new connections, and expand her network. After her brother leaves, Eesuh mutters to herself that she really doesn't want to go. A charity concert full of children from wealthy families, it's bound to be packed with people she'd rather avoid. The thought of it already feels tedious and annoying. But this time, she feels an even stronger aversion to going than usual. At the charity event, Eesuh looks stunning. Her brother is the reason she's not completely isolated from society, but she still feels like she doesn't belong anywhere. They spot the Haitian group, and her brother suggests they go and greet them. Taehan and his wife greet them warmly, and Eesuh's brother introduces her to them. Taehan mentions that his younger brother came with them, and then Taejoh arrives, noticing Eesuh. He greets Eesuh's brother and is introduced to Eesuh. Taejoh recalls that they both graduated from the same school. Taejoh acknowledges that he knows Eesuh well, and her brother adds that she works as a curator. Taejoh mentions he heard about her job before and hopes she keeps doing great work there. Eesuh nods and assures him she'll give it her all. Her brother then mentions he's going to greet other guests and will return shortly. As her brother steps away, he tells Eesuh to hang out with Taejoh for a bit. Eesuh attempts to leave, but Taejoh stops her, asking where she's off to. He reminds her that her brother asked her to stick around with him. He suggests she be a good little sister and stay. Eesuh responds that she's heading to the restroom and tells him to follow if he wants to. While in the restroom, Eesuh recalls her first encounter with Taejoh. He's always been someone who marches to the beat of his own drum, doing whatever he pleases. Now, he's poking his nose into her business, and she can't stand him for it. When she steps out, she doesn't spot Taejoh and wonders if he's already gone. Approaching 4 women who were her close friends from high school, Eesuh overhears one of them commenting on her arrival. They note her expression, describing it as lifeless once more. One of them remarks that if she were in Eesuh's shoes, she wouldn't have shown up knowing she'd encounter everyone. Upon hearing their conversation, Eesuh retreats to a corner. The group continues discussing her, mentioning hurtful things like her being illegitimate and how their brothers warned them against associating with her. They conclude that she doesn't have any friends, among other things. As she processes their hurtful words, Eesuh realizes that's what they've been thinking of her all along. Just then, she spots Taejoh. As they exchange glances, they continue to overhear the girls talking about Eesuh. Annoyed by the insults, Taejoh mutters to himself that she's treating those insults like a piano performance, just standing there and taking it. He realizes she's spent her whole life hearing such gossip and not reacting. She recalls the doormat comment and admits to Taejoh that she's indeed a doormat. He looks surprised, but she walks away without another word. In the parking lot, she heads to her car with him trailing behind. He asks where she's headed, but she stays silent. He steps in front of her and asks if she's ignoring him. She retorts, asking why he even cares. He mentions how people might gossip about him if she leaves abruptly. She questions why he's concerned, and he reminds her of their agreement to sleep together. He keeps on saying it makes him sad, asking if she forgot. He's serious, not joking around. She mutters to herself that she's fed up with this. She's confused and starting to get annoyed with Taejoh and her situation. After spending her whole life trying not to upset anyone, is this what she gets? If she's going to be treated badly no matter what she does, then she just wants to wreck everything. She asks Taejoh if he's really going to humble her. If she sleeps with him once, will he stop trailing her? Taejoh then questions why she suddenly found a reason to sleep with him. She then shrugs, saying it doesn't matter since she's a doormat. Taejoh grabs her hand and pulls her to his car, and they drive off. Inside the car, he looks at her and thinks to himself that it's not like she's heading to her death or anything like that. She then tells him not to say anything. She keeps on talking, saying that if she starts to have doubts, she'll back out. Taejoh turns on the music. They arrive at the hotel room, and Taejoh takes off his suit jacket. Shortly after they start kissing, Eesuh pushes Taejoh away when he tries to touch her. He asks if she's scared, and she stammers out a no. He reassures her that he'll be gentle as he continues kissing her. As he removes his shirt, Taejoh comments that she should be on display. He notices her expression and asks why she's making that face, reminding her that it's not her first time. He mentions that she's not great at kissing but acknowledges that she's attractive. She asks him if he can just get to the main part already. He assures her not to worry, they'll start. Then, he asks if it's her first time, but she stays silent. Sitting up, she tells him if he doesn't like that it's her first time, then he should forget about it. She goes on, saying there's nothing special about him, plenty of others would do it. Taejoh wonders why she keeps annoying him. He pushes her back on the bed, mentioning how she was shaking a moment ago, but now she's suddenly talking a lot. So she keeps quiet and they get to it. The next morning, when Taejoh wakes up, he notices Eesuh isn't in bed with him. Next scene, we see Yuze at the Haitian Art Center. She stands there, thinking to herself, it's been a little over a week since that night. It felt like electricity coursing through her body. She glances at her phone and wonders, what is she hoping for? It's not like he has her number. The only reason she agreed was so he could end things. Or maybe it was all just a dream, so she should stop this. It didn't mean anything. She should just go back to her normal daily life. Just then, a lady's voice calls her name. The lady is walking with Taejoh. It's the director. Eesuh greets her, and she tells her to get back to work. As they leave, Eesuh watches them. At the coffee area, Taejoh asks his mom who the girl was. She tells him she's one of her employees named Suh Yoon. She's sharp and has a keen eye but doesn't act like a know-it-all, and that's why she likes her. His mom then asks if he's into her, and he says no. She comments that the Yoon family did well raising their children. Eesuh is a good kid, nothing like her mother. Despite some rumors about her, Taejoh thinks to himself that his mom is basically telling him not to get involved with her. His mom then asks about the preparations for his grandfather's 80th birthday and suggests he should visit his grandfather more often to spend time with him since he cares a lot about him. Taejoh responds that he's really busy and doesn't have time to visit him. His mom then wonders aloud how her children, who were born from the same womb, turned out so differently. She insists that he has to settle down, but he reassures her that he's grateful for her concern but will take care of his own business. As he gets up, he tells her to stop planning strategies because it gives him a headache. She asks what he means, saying she doesn't use her children as bargaining chips. He quickly reassures her, saying of course not, because she's his mother after all. As he walks outside, he mutters to himself about marriage, thinking he won't die if he doesn't get married. Then, he recalls what was said about Eesuh. Just then, she starts coming out, and he asks her why she's leaving work so late. He wonders if she does all the work by herself. She asks him why he's there, and he replies it's for work. Then, he comments that it's been a while. He asks how she's been and about her health. She responds that she's fine, as he can see. He then inquires about her plans for the evening, and she mentions she has an appointment. He asks if she's off to another matchmaking meetup. Handing her his coffee, he suggests canceling her appointment and joining him instead. She questions if he waited for her since he acted like a stranger earlier. Taejoh then pulls her close and insists they go somewhere together. At the restaurant, Eesuh questions Taejoh about his intentions. He casually explains that he just wanted to grab a meal with her. Reflecting on their last encounter, he admits he enjoyed it more than she did, and he doesn't like feeling indebted. So, he suggests she sees it as him making things right. While eating, Eesuh wonders if Taejoh brought her here because he felt guilty about that night. Taejoh then comments on the wine, saying it seems to agree with her taste buds. He describes it as Chateau Margaux, a top-notch Bordeaux wine known as the Queen of Wines. As she takes each sip, the floral taste gets stronger, making her taste buds feel hugged by the flavor. The wine is a mix of intricate flavors and beauty, leaving a great aftertaste on her tongue. It's the kind of drink that's perfect for a fancy dinner that lasts a long time. He then asks her if she had to pick one wine to drink right before she kicks the bucket, what would it be? She responds asking if she's about to kick the bucket. He then brings up a book by a Japanese writer called A Lost Paradise. In the story, the main characters have Chateau Margaux with their last meal before they off themselves so they can be together forever. He goes on, saying that before they sipped the wine, they said, "Let's fall to hell together." Eesuh thinks to herself that he probably couldn't even imagine how much that idea would affect her. Then she tells him she doesn't get what love meant to them that they do something like that. She asks him if he's ever felt like that. He replies that he's never had a reason to. She continues, saying someone fools around and calls something love, and as a result, someone else has to suffer forever, while someone else spends their whole life trying to make up for it. He asks if she's talking about herself, and she confirms it. He acknowledges that it must be really painful. He then adds that sometimes, people can't resist their physical desires. When their minds weaken, their physical urges take over, and that's how people become obsessed with something. He goes on to explain that in the prime of their lives, people carry this burden and are led to tragedy by the delusion that it's love. He believes that when that happens to them, they'll understand. However, she firmly responds that it will never happen. She goes on to say that whether it's obsession or love, that moment of consuming her will never come. Taejoh responds, saying she's fun. He suggests they drop the serious stuff and talk about something else, like normal stuff about their daily lives. He just randomly decided to take her out, but to be honest, she's really enjoying their chat. They're talking about all sorts of stuff, from culture and what's happening now to the whole economy. Turns out, he's smarter than she thought. She's not getting bored at all. It's like she's seeing him in a whole new way. While they walk outside, she admits he's smarter than she gave him credit for. Curious, he asks what she initially thought of him. She describes him as the Prince of Honsung-hai, the young master of the Haitian group, arrogant, spoiled, and the prodigal son. He agrees, acknowledging that what she said is true. She thinks to herself that Taejoh isn't affected by these words or the rumors about him, he's really different from her. Then he asks her what she thought of today, and she replies that it was just a memorable day. He expresses his happiness that she had fun. He suggests they leave and he'll drive her home. In the car, she looks at him and questions if he's suddenly being nice to her because he feels he owes her something. No matter how much she thinks about it, it just doesn't make sense to her. He responds that he doesn't need another reason. There's no special meaning behind it, he was just hungry and wanted to eat. She realizes that he did it because he wanted to, just like that night they slept together. She thinks to herself that only now does she understand. Suddenly appearing and shaking her to her core, everything about this moment, none of it meant anything to Taejoh. She was the only one confused and feeling something. When they arrived at her house, she thanked him for the ride. He then asked her why she left, reminding her that he had asked why she ran away that night. She tells him they're finished, and he responds, "So we had our fun and that's it?" She explains that's what they agreed to, and besides, it's in the past. She thought he wouldn't care. He then gently touches her cheek and admits it's the first time he's been used and abandoned like this. He leans in and asks if it wasn't as good as she hoped, sure it couldn't have been that bad. Then he kisses her, but she pushes him away, telling him to stop. He questions why, asking if she doesn't like it. She responds, saying he's awful. It seems like he thought sleeping with her once would make her submissive, but it didn't. He responds, saying he'll have to try again, and asks if they should do it today. She smiles and questions if sex is the only thing he's good at, teasing him for being so confident. Then she challenges him to prove he's truly a good guy. If he can't, then he should just forget about it. He holds her and assures her not to regret it later because he's the kind of guy who doesn't leave things unfinished. She agrees, saying okay, and looks forward to it. In a flashback to their high school days, some guys talk about how hot Eesuh is. One of her friends, who was supposed to clean, lies about having period pains and tells Eesuh to clean it instead. As they leave, Taejoh comes inside angrily and tells her to get out. She responds by telling him to clean up himself. At the Haitian Hotel Fitness Club, while Taejoh works out, he thinks about what Eesuh told him. Suddenly, his cousin Taejoh Ryu, who heads HSDC Haitian Industrial Development and is the managing director of Haitian Hotel, approaches him and asks how he's been. Taejoh simply responds with good. The cousin remarks that Taejoh still seems to be hitting the gym regularly, to which Taejoh responds with a compliment about his cousin's own fitness. After finishing their workouts, they sit down for coffee, and Taejoh brings up the topic he heard about his cousin's plan to build a leisure complex on Jeju Island. Taejoh adds that his cousin must be pretty tied up, especially with plans to set up a duty-free shop there too. The cousin acknowledges that he's used to handling such projects, but admits it's a bit challenging this time around since it's his first crack at this kind of work. Taejoh casually remarks that it's not hard, after all, it's just in their family's blood. He even jokes that a monkey could handle it. The cousin responds by saying he's excited to see what Taejoh can bring to the table. Taejoh Ryu, Taejoh's older cousin by 5 years, has always been in competition with him since they were kids. Whenever Jinhan achieved something, Taejoh followed closely behind. For example, when Jinhan won first place at the National Sports Festival, Taejoh settled for a silver medal. Similarly, when Jinhan excelled in piano and won a prize at a national competition, Taejoh matched it with his own accomplishment. And even when Jinhan showed talent in painting, he impressed everyone with his skills in an art contest. Taejoh always felt defeated as he tried to keep up with Jinhan's successes, so he's determined to make his duty-free shop venture a success. Taejoh then casually asks Jinhan if he's planning to get married soon. Jinhan replies that he'll have to eventually, when the time is right. Taejoh remarks how relaxed Jinhan is about it. Jinhan then casually mentions there's no rush for him to settle down because he believes he'll meet the right person when the time is right. Taejoh spots Eesuh sitting behind them, so he hastily stands up, thanking Jinhan for the chat and suggesting they catch up later. As Eesuh apologizes to her date, he walks away. Taejoh approaches and tells her it's not right for her to still be attending matchmaking events. She questions why he's there, and he responds by asking the same of her. He reminds her that she wanted him to prove he's a good person, yet she's still involved in activities like this. She wasn't keen on giving him a chance, but he grabs her hand and tells her to come with him. She mentions she has another appointment, and he asks if it's another matchmaking thing. She replies it's a cooking class, and he teases her, saying she's really serious about bridal training. He asks her how much time they have, and she says they've got 5 hours. He tells her to come along with him. She asks where they're heading, and he says she needs to give him a shot. He adds that from now on, whenever she's free, she should give him a call. Inside his room, she asks him what they're doing there. He suggests she could read a book or take a nap if she's tired. He wonders if she was expecting something else, as he doesn't see her as that type of girl. He thinks she's being pretty obvious, but it won't go the way she expects, so she shouldn't dwell on it. He asks her how long she plans to keep going to matchmaking meetups, wondering if it's tiring for her. He suggests if she doesn't want to go, she should just say no to the invites. She replies that she doesn't really get a choice because it's what's expected of her. She feels it's the only way she can be useful. She keeps going, saying she hates doing it as well, but she feels powerless to stop it by herself. Taejoh then pulls her close for a hug and asks if she wants him to take care of it for her. Taejoh tells her it's simple, if she says yes, he'll put a stop to it. She hugs him tightly and refuses, saying he shouldn't do anything. She believes if she just waits, it'll all work out in the end. Taejoh smiles, noting that she really believes waiting will solve everything. She admits she's the kind of fool who believes in that sort of thing. He then starts kissing her, and they begin getting intimate. In Taejoh's mind, he finds it odd, he doesn't want to just dismiss her once they're finished. He wonders if something changed today. He wants to be with her forever, feeling overwhelmed by this sensation. He ponders what it could be, maybe just desire and instinct, he figures. While they carry on, Taejoh thinks to himself that he's annoyed by her presence. Her demeanor, as if she's abandoned all hope, and even the parts of her she's revealed only to him, are strangely appealing. It's like he's starting to develop feelings for her. After they're done, Eesuh gets dressed, and Taejoh questions if she's leaving him again. He accuses her of getting what she wanted and now she's ready to bail. He reminds her that she was pleading with him just a moment ago. Eesuh simply replies that she's leaving now. Taejoh then inquires about when they'll meet again. He clarifies that he's not talking about sex, they could do something else next time. Eesuh questions if he's proposing they go on a date. Taejoh's expression turns sour, and he suggests that she should decide when they meet next. He then questions if she intends to meet him again. He believes that she should at least stand by what she said. She asked him to prove he's a good guy, but she should be truthful, she never really meant to give him that opportunity. She then nods in agreement and expresses her doubts about why they should keep meeting. She feels there's nothing substantial between them anyway, so she believes it's best to end it here. He then takes hold of her arm and reminds her of his words, he always finishes what he starts. However, he decides to let it slide this time, goes on to say that she shouldn't attend any more matchmaking meetups from now on. He adds that he doesn't enjoy taking things or people that belong to others. It doesn't sit right with him. He holds her face gently and mentions that it's not fair for her to do these things with him while she's out there looking for a husband. She suggests that he could also try matchmaking meetups if he wants. Taejoh responds by saying they should just end it then. Eesuh walks out, mentioning that she was already considering ending things anyway, leaving him looking sad. At Hyunhee's cooking class, Eesuh steps out holding a box. She feels exhausted inside. Taejoh Ryu's wife, Suh Yoon, spots her and greets her warmly. Eesuh greets her back. Suh Yoon mentions that today's class was tough for her and she had trouble keeping up. But when she looked at Eesuh, she seemed to be doing everything flawlessly. Suh Yoon finds her very impressive and hopes she can improve like Eesuh too. As Suh Yoon says goodbye to Eesuh, Eesuh thinks to herself how lovely Suh Yoon is. Suddenly, she bumps into a guy, and the box of food she was carrying falls to the ground and spills everywhere. The guy quickly apologizes, admitting he wasn't paying attention. He bends down to help clean up the mess. Eesuh reassures him that he doesn't need to use his handkerchief. The guy insists, saying he has to at least help. As he looks at her, Eesuh mentions she was just going to throw it away, so it's okay. She stands up and tells him not to worry too much about it, she's perfectly fine. As Eesuh starts walking away, the guy tries to get her attention, but she doesn't hear him. He then realizes that the shampoo scent she's wearing is from Haitian Hotel, which reminds him of Jinhan, Taejoh's cousin. Meanwhile, Suh Yoon approaches Jinhan and asks why he's so late. He explains that he stopped by after work, so she should just be thankful he showed up. He then inquires about her husband, and she responds that she worked hard in the cooking class to prepare food for him. He agrees, saying having a wife is like having a blessing in the family. Then, he asks if there's a woman in her class with long hair and big eyes. Then, she mentions Eesuh's name and says she's a curator at her mother-in-law's art center. She asks him if he likes her, and he responds that he was just curious. In Eesuh's room, she rubs her legs, feeling exhausted, and recalls her encounter with Taejoh. Her brother enters the room and asks if he can come in. She invites him in and asks what's up. He then says he heard something a little while ago. He heard that Taejoh Ryu from the Haitian group made a bet concerning her. So, she should please be careful. She tells him not to worry. She tells him there's no need for them to meet again. He responds with a sense of relief, suggesting she should rest. As her brother walks away, she quietly tells herself she's done with Taejoh and won't see him again. At Haitian Hotel's reception hall, they're celebrating the 80th birthday of Taejoh Ryu, the founder of Haitian Group. Eesuh is with her mom, who comments that her outfit is too plain. She reminds Eesuh that her father will be there too, so she should be extra careful. Eesuh wonders to herself who she takes after, thinking, who do I take after? People congratulate Taejoh as grandfather, and Eesuh watches from a distance, thinking to herself, so that's Taejoh Ryu. Even at 80, he still looks powerful. Just then, Eesuh's brother approaches them and informs them that their father and grandfather have arrived. Eesuh's mother greets her father-in-law, and he calls Eesuh over to join him. He then brings her to meet Jungwon. They say hello to each other, and he introduces Eesuh as his granddaughter. Jungwon compliments Eesuh, saying she's grown up to be quite pretty. Eesuh congratulates him on his birthday. As Eesuh leaves, Jungwon compliments her and mentions he'd like to introduce her to one of his grandsons. In a big gathering like this, where there are many people around, Eesuh, who's always felt unwanted as an illegitimate child, finally feels acknowledged for the first time in her life. Just then, Jinhan greets her, saying they meet again. She looks at him, curious, and asks why he's here. He explains it's his grandfather's birthday, so naturally, he has to be here. Then, he introduces himself, and she does the same. Inwardly, she acknowledges that he's Taejoh's cousin. He asks her if she made it home all right that day. Curious, she asks what he did with the handkerchief. He explains he couldn't save it. She apologizes, and he mentions he heard Lee-hun is her older brother and that she works at the art center. Then he mentions that her father never talked about her, so he didn't know who she was. After a brief silence from her, he admits he was careless with the handkerchief, so it was entirely his fault. However, he feels he should make up for ruining the food, and asks if he can treat her to dinner sometime because of that. He tells her not to feel pressured, but she smiles and agrees, saying she'd like that. Then, she comments on how crowded it is with so many people here today. He agrees, saying the place feels really cramped because of them. Whenever he feels that way, he admits he sneaks out and goes to the rest area near the annex building. He goes on, mentioning that the rest area is usually empty and quiet, so she can relax comfortably there. Then, he extends his card and suggests she should give him a call sometime. As he walks away, he mentions he'll come visit her at the art center and hopes she rests well. She silently calls his name in her mind and thinks he's a kind and gentle man as she looks at the card. Walking away, she notices Taejoh glaring at her angrily from a distance. Taejoh mutters to himself, realizing this is where he encounters her once more. He recalls what she said to him earlier, and now he sees her with his cousin. He notices she never looked at him like that before. Inside the annex building, Eesuh sits down and breathes a sigh of relief, feeling glad that her grandfather finally acknowledged her. However, she realizes that now she probably has to fulfill her duty and prove her usefulness. Just then, Taejoh walks in, lights up his cigarette, and mentions how crowded it was outside, which is why it took him a while to find her. He asks her if she's waiting for someone. She remembers what her brother told her and decides to turn her face away, ignoring him. Taejoh suggests they should just forget about it and pretend it never happened. He's referring to when he said they should end things, proposing they should just call it a mistake. After she said those things, he just got angry. She stays quiet, and he wonders to himself why she isn't speaking up. He can't figure out what she's thinking if she doesn't say anything. He's really fed up with her attitude and wonders why he's acting like this. Has he liked her all along? He can't believe he'd have feelings for someone like her. He then asks her if she's considering pursuing his cousin instead. She asks him what he means, and he explains that he saw her laughing with him. He regrets not realizing sooner that she would just get what she wanted and leave without saying anything. He goes on, questioning if she enjoys hurting people. They shared something together, so is she just going to act like it meant nothing? But then he wonders why he wants to keep holding on to her. Eesuh responds, saying she can't imagine what kind of conversation they could even have. She suggests they should just end it here because she has a headache. He grabs her and asks, "Stop what?" He insists they haven't even started, so what is she saying they should stop? She tells him to release her because she has to leave. He shoves her, demanding that she answer him. He yells, asking if she likes Jinhan now, wondering if that's why she's acting this way. She responds by asking if that's what he wants, mentioning that his cousin seemed like a good guy. Inwardly, he acknowledges that one of the reasons he wanted to end things was this justified anger he feels that was being ignored. Taejoh begins kissing her, and she interrupts, asking if he's finished now, if that was enough. He looks at her in surprise. She's never let him in emotionally, always drawing a clear line he couldn't cross. It's not like he was expecting anything more, but why does it make him feel this way? He tells her it would be a waste if things ended here, insisting there's more to do. He instructs her to open her mouth, and he begins kissing her again. Then, he questions what she really knows about Jinhan. She's going to act like this with him and then go cling to his cousin? He can't let that happen, there's still so much they haven't done. She responds that she's not going to do anything with him, so he should just end it already. He wonders if she even cares about what he does to her or what happens between them. Then, he takes her hand and says he'll take her home. As they walk outside, with him holding her hand, Sunghyun Kim spots them and asks if they're going on a date. Then, he adds that she knows it's all part of a bet. How does he think saying it like that will make Eesuh look? Inside the car, he wonders if she ever gets mad. She asks him what he means, and he clarifies, asking if she's angry about what just happened. She responds, asking if he means how rough he was with her or how he made a bet about her. She admits she never thought he had any genuine feelings for her. She goes on, wondering how she could have expected anything different from someone who suggested sleeping together when they first met. Taejoh thinks to himself, why does she keep making that face? He'd prefer if she got angry or snapped back at him. When she's calm like this, it feels like none of these things matter to her. As they reach her house, she unbuckles her seatbelt. He admits she's right, he made a bet about her. The deal was whoever took her on a date after meeting her 3 times would win. He acknowledges he shouldn't have done it, but he was drunk and emotional. As he tries to explain further, she interrupts, telling him not to complicate things as if they were anything special. Then, she thanks him, saying she had fun too. At the Haitian Art Center, some coworkers are surprised to see Eesuh receiving flowers. One of them asks if they're from her boyfriend, but she interrupts, saying no. Before she can finish her sentence, the colleague starts expressing jealousy, wondering when she'll ever receive something like that. Inside, Eesuh wonders who could have sent the flowers. Could it be Taejoh? Nah, he wouldn't do that. Maybe it's Jinhan. She notices the handwriting on a small card inside the bouquet and thinks it matches Jinhan's style. With a smile, she tells her colleagues she's stepping outside for a moment and will be right back. As she heads out, she gives Jinhan a call. He tells her he's the one who sent the flowers and asks if the timing works for her. He also wants to know if there's any specific food she enjoys. She replies, I like everything. He then says he'll make sure everything is prepared and they'll catch up later. In her mind, she thinks Jinhan is a decent guy, unlike Taejoh Ryu. She sees Taejoh as someone who acts without thinking and only thinks about himself. She believes his actions are just random and thoughtless, and she doesn't expect anything from him. He means nothing to her. Later that night, Eesuh leaves the art center with her flowers in hand. Suddenly, she spots Taejoh standing next to his car. He approaches her and notices the flowers. Curious, he asks about them, but Eesuh brushes it off, saying it's not his concern. Then, Taejoh remembers his cousin and tells her to just toss them away. She questions if he's lost his marbles, explaining that the flowers were a present. Taejoh retorts, asking if there's a rule against tossing out gifts. Then, he hands her a little box, urging her to take it. Wondering what's inside, she asks, and he replies she'll see once she opens it. She lets go of the basket and eagerly opens the box. Inside, she finds a bracelet with a screw pattern. Realizing she can't put it on by herself, she looks up at Taejoh. He tells her it's a gift. She wonders if it symbolizes everlasting love. Eesuh doubts Taejoh understands the bracelet's significance. But he insists she give him her hand, and he carefully slips it on for her. He comments that it looks good on her and asks if she likes it. Curious, she asks what it symbolizes. Taejoh then reveals his own arm, adorned with a matching bracelet, and calls them shackles. Taejoh tells Eesuh not to remove the bracelet, then apologizes sincerely for their previous encounter. Eesuh reassures him, saying it's okay. Taejoh urges her to reciprocate, reminding her of the gift he gave her and asking for praise. In her mind, Eesuh notes that he's acting as if nothing happened. Taejoh questions why Eesuh is laughing. She explains it's amusing how he apologized like it's a joke and asked for praise like a kid. Taejoh responds, asking if his sincerity is a joke to her. Eesuh remarks that being serious doesn't fit his personality. Suddenly, he leans in and kisses her on the lips. Eesuh finds herself hoping that Taejoh's actions reflect his true self, and perhaps something meaningful could develop between them. Taejoh offers to drive her home. Seeing the expression on her face, he asks what she's thinking. As she gets into the car, he comments on her cold demeanor towards him. She responds with a dismissive whatever. Taejoh tosses the flowers to the back of the car, and Eesuh questions why he's being so careless with them, reminding him they were a gift. He retorts that his gift is worth more, and she sarcastically thanks him. Taejoh's heart still hurts, so he rushes to Eesuh, thinking an apology might help her feel better. But it doesn't work out that way. He realizes he just wanted to be near her. Lying on her bed, Eesuh thinks to herself that she's finally got a break from all the matchmaking events she usually attends. She's looking forward to some much-needed rest. Just as she relaxes, her phone buzzes with a text from Taejoh. He's asking what she's up to today. Eesuh texts back, saying she's just chilling at home for some downtime. Taejoh responds, telling her to come outside. She hesitates, but he insists he's already waiting in front of her house. He even suggests ringing the doorbell if she prefers. Startled, Eesuh quickly agrees to meet him outside, telling him not to bother ringing the doorbell. While searching for a dress, Eesuh thinks to herself that Taejoh always does as he pleases. When she finally emerges, he asks why she took so long and teases her about dressing up for him, noticing her makeup. She quickly brushes it off, saying she's just in her usual clothes. Taejoh gently touches her lips and remarks that she doesn't have any matchmaking meetups today. Eesuh questions why he wanted to meet up with her. He explains that he asked her to reach out when she had some free time, but he hasn't heard from her. He wonders why she doesn't like talking to him. Taejoh opens the car door and motions for Eesuh to hop in. As she settles into the car, she playfully teases him, calling him selfish and jokingly suggesting she should announce it to the entire neighborhood. Meanwhile, Eesuh's brother stands at his window, observing them. Sitting in the car, Eesuh asks Taejoh where they're heading. He admits he hadn't really thought about it and suggests it's her day off, so what does she usually enjoy doing? He wonders about her hobbies. Eesuh confesses she doesn't have any hobbies. In her mind, she realizes she's always busy with matchmaking meetups and bridal classes whenever she has free time. She doesn't have a single hobby. Then, Taejoh suggests they could go see a movie together. At the movie theater, Taejoh comments that it's Eesuh's first date. She agrees, mentioning he's had plenty, so he's probably used to them. Irritated, he suggests they just focus on the movie. While they watch, Eesuh thinks to herself that Taejoh isn't making any moves, and she's unnecessarily feeling self-conscious. As she reflects on it, Eesuh realizes it's been a while since she laughed so freely and comfortably. She's genuinely having a great time. After the movie ends, she tells Taejoh she didn't anticipate such an outcome. He agrees, praising the amazing plot twist. Eesuh adds that she laughed so hard during the movie that her stomach started to ache. Taejoh expresses his happiness that Eesuh enjoyed herself and mentions that watching a movie was a good idea. In her mind, Eesuh wonders if their outing will end with just the movie and heading home. Then, Taejoh suggests going for a walk, and Eesuh readily agrees with a nod. While at Changdeok Palace, Taejoh mentions that he had some work in the area not too long ago, so he ate at a nearby place. Eesuh replies that she believes it's her first time visiting Changdeok Palace, but she's been to Gyeongbok before. Curious, Taejoh asks why she went there, and Eesuh explains that she once ran away during high school. Eesuh goes on, explaining that she felt incredibly frustrated, and it was her first time rebelling. Taejoh teases her, joking that she called him a bad guy, but she's actually worse. She adds that she returned home on the same day. Then, she compliments the palace, noting how nice and peaceful it is. Eesuh points out that it's just the two of them here, meaning they don't have to worry about other people. She admits that she doesn't really enjoy spending time with him. Taejoh acknowledges her feelings but wonders why it annoys him. In response, Eesuh asks him what he does on his days off and if he has any hobbies. Taejoh responds that he's pretty much working all the time lately. He questions if people like them can even afford to have hobbies, considering they're expected to do whatever their families tell them. Then, he suggests they check out the greenhouse. Arriving there, they both admire its size and the warmth inside. While Eesuh bends down to touch the flowers, Taejoh watches her intently. Taejoh playfully bends down and uses a leaf to tickle Eesuh, making her laugh and ask him to stop. Then, he gently takes her hand and asks her not to leave. He leans in and kisses her. They move to another spot and sit down, their hands resting on top of each other. Eesuh admits she doesn't have any hobbies either because she can't afford to. Eesuh goes on, explaining that when she does have free time, it's usually filled with matchmaking meetups or bridal classes. But she's quick to mention that there are good things in her life too, like art. Whenever she's at the art center, she feels like she can finally breathe. On days when she doesn't feel like going to matchmaking events, she opts to work overtime instead. Eesuh admits that the movie they just watched was the first one she's seen since high school. Taejoh comments that she must have had a strict upbringing. He notes how she attended numerous matchmaking meetups but couldn't find anyone she liked. Eesuh explains that she viewed marriage as a duty she had to fulfill. Taejoh asks if that's what she wants too. Eesuh responds, saying she feels like she'll have to get married eventually because that's how she can prove her worth. Taejoh expresses frustration, saying he's tired of all the marriage talk. He finds it tedious that everyone keeps harping on about his duty, yet they won't give him the space to live his own life. Eesuh wonders if Taejoh plans to get married. He responds by saying he just wants to focus on enjoying the present moment. Taejoh drops her off at home, and she thanks him for the ride. He admits that he never imagined he would enjoy being in a relationship, but he had a good time today. Eesuh agrees, saying she did too. Taejoh gently holds Eesuh's hand and wishes her a good night. She returns the sentiment, telling him to have a good night too. As they part ways, they both ponder what they are to each other. Eesuh wonders about their relationship, both from her perspective and his. They both contemplate what they could possibly become. When Eesuh walks into her house, she spots her brother. He wants to know where she's been since it's late. She quickly replies that she had plans with a friend. Feeling tired, she announces she's going to head upstairs to get some rest. At Jangcheongdong Haesungwon, Taejoh's grandfather gathers his children and informs them he has something to discuss. He then inquires about the ages of Jinhan and Taejoh. Jinhan's mom responds that he's currently 32 years old, while Taejoh's mom states he's 27. He then suggests that Jinhan and Taejoh are at the right age for marriage. He mentions the possibility of marrying one of them to Sang Baekhyun's granddaughter, noting that he heard she also works at the art center. Curious about her, he asks how she is. Taejoh's mom responds, describing her as a bright and energetic person. She adds that Sang Baekhyun's granddaughter, Songgi Choi, is also a child born out of wedlock. She questions how he expects an illegitimate child born into a chaebol family to grow up. She believes there's no way Songgi received proper love and care while living with a woman who harbored feelings of betrayal. The grandfather expresses his desire to arrange a marriage between Taejoh and Songgi, despite her background. Eesuh objects, reminding him that Taejoh is still young. The grandfather counters, asking if she didn't say Songgi is a good kid. Eesuh concedes but points out that Taejoh is still immature and selfish. She suggests he takes his time before deciding to marry. Jinhan, however, volunteers to marry Songgi, saying he'll be happy to do it. At home, Eesuh's mom breaks the news that her grandfather has arranged her marriage. Eesuh is surprised and asks who the groom is. Her mom reveals it's with Haitian Jinhan Ryu and asks if she knows him. They plan to set up a meeting, so her mom advises Eesuh to be on her best behavior for now. Eesuh's brother calls her and wants to make sure she heard what their mother said. He advises her to break things off with Taejoh because he knows they've been dating. He warns her that she'll only end up getting hurt if she gets involved with someone like him. He suggests that whoever she decides to date, she should make sure it's someone who treats her with respect. As her brother leaves, Eesuh feels a sense of disappointment. She thinks to herself how everything ended so abruptly, even though they never really had the chance to begin anything. Days later, Eesuh sits with Jinhan. He mentions he promised to treat her to a meal, but he didn't anticipate meeting her in a place like this. They're at a spot where couples meet before tying the knot. Eesuh reassures Jinhan that it's okay, and she actually finds the atmosphere quite pleasant. It's a significant place where people discuss important matters and only laugh politely. It's where people prepare for their upcoming marriages. Jinhan inquires about the qualities Eesuh desires in a spouse. She responds that she wants someone who considers her their top priority. Curious, Jinhan asks how she perceives him. Eesuh believes he comes from a good family. Jinhan agrees, sharing that he had the same impression. He believes that if she chooses to be with him, they can create a strong family together. Taejoh Ryu is a guy who's obviously had plenty of love growing up, and he's not messed up in any way. If she marries a guy like him, all the gossip about her will finally stop, and she'll have peaceful days ahead for sure. So, everything will be fine. It has to be fine. Eesuh then asks Jinhan if he loves her. He responds that at the moment, he doesn't, but he's confident that once they're married and start living together, his feelings will grow. He's sure he'll be able to love her. Plus, he's the type of person who would make her his top priority, just like she always wanted. But typically, their physical desires overpower them when their minds become vulnerable. When that happens, they'll realize. Just then, Eesuh thinks of Taejoh and wonders inwardly why he had to cross her mind at this moment of all times. Jinhan notices Eesuh's hands trembling and tears streaming down her face. He asks her if she's alright and quickly stands up to give her a hug, reassuring her that everything will be alright. At the Haitian Art Center, Eesuh's phone rings, and it's Taejoh calling. He's tried calling her 11 times already. It's been 2 weeks since the day she held Taejoh Ryu's hand. She's decided to accept all the blessings that come her way because it's the proper thing to do. So, she figures Taejoh must move on because their connection didn't really mean anything. As Eesuh closes up and steps outside, she spots Taejoh. He questions why she hasn't been answering her phone, and she explains that she typically doesn't answer calls while working. Taejoh grabs her phone from her hand and notices she hasn't blocked him. Frustrated, he mentions it's been 2 weeks. He warns that if she ignores his calls again, he's going to cause a scene at the art center. Taejoh insists that Eesuh gets into his car, but she insists on taking her own. He questions why she's being difficult and urges her to hurry up and get in, reassuring her that he's not trying to kidnap her. As they sit inside the car, Eesuh wonders where they're headed, driving through the darkness. When they arrive, Taejoh instructs Eesuh to step out of the car. She realizes they're at the ocean and questions why they came there. Taejoh responds, saying she loves the sea. He notes how she often loses herself gazing at the paradise before her. Then, he jokingly asks if she wants him to buy her the entire sea. Taken aback by his statement, Eesuh tells him he should speak sense. She questions how he could even consider such a thing. Taejoh responds by asking why he couldn't. Eesuh explains that he can't just have whatever he wants simply because he desires it. Taejoh replies that's how he's lived his life up until now. He explains that he's always gotten what he's wanted, and that won't change in the future. He believes he can make that kind of life her life too. Then, he takes her hand and suggests they go into the ocean. Feeling pressured to agree with Taejoh's mindset, Eesuh realizes she needs to stop this before it gets out of hand. However, Taejoh grabs her and encourages her to look at the shooting stars, urging her to make a wish. Inwardly, Eesuh acknowledges that they truly mean nothing to each other, and making wishes won't change that fact. Alone with her thoughts, Eesuh makes her wish where no one can hear or remember. She wishes for them to end things. Taejoh interrupts, asking if she enjoys seeing the real sea. Eesuh replies that she needs to leave. Taejoh questions her sudden departure, holding her and asking what's wrong. Even though her shackle is intact, Eesuh still feels distant and cold. Does she truly despise him this much? Suddenly, Eesuh hugs him tightly. Before she can say anything, he reassures her that everything is all right. He suggests they head back to the car first. As they sit in the car, they get closer and share intimate moments. He wants to feel the heat and excitement with her, feeling a desire he's never felt before. He just wants to be with her all the time, feeling like they're finally close after being so far apart. Why does this warmth feel so close? Does he like her too, even in the heat between them? And is this really gonna be the last time they're together? Taejoh tells her she drives him crazy, advises her not to date other guys, and insists she shouldn't reveal this side of herself to anyone else. He declares she's the only one for him and he doesn't want to lose her, while she expresses she doesn't want to break up either. Once they finish, he offers her some water. She holds onto him tightly, wanting to stay like that a bit more. He suggests they can stay there forever if she wants. Unable to cling on to him any longer, she confesses she's getting married. At the Seoul Customs HQ, during the bidding day for the new downtown duty-free shop, Hyung advises Taejoh to stay focused and calm. Taejoh assures him he understands, asking how many times he's going to remind him. Hyung explains he's noticed Taejoh being distracted lately, so he's concerned. Jinhan approaches them and mentions that Taejoh made it. He then extends his hand and wishes them both luck, saying, "May the best man win." Taejoh recalls the moment Eesuh told him she's marrying Jinhan. He grabs her, asking if she's kidding, saying she shouldn't joke like that. They've been together for so long, and now what? She's engaged to his cousin. Does she really think he'll let that happen? He looks at her expression and decides he doesn't need someone like her anyway. Fast forward to now, Taejoh tells Jinhan that seeing his smile in the morning is really unpleasant. Jinhan just brushes it off, saying Taejoh must be nervous. Taejoh questions why he should be nervous about this and suggests Jinhan should focus on himself. Jinhan responds by announcing that the date for his engagement ceremony has been scheduled for the second Saturday of next month. Taejoh congratulates him with a smile, shaking his hand. Taejoh then tells Jinhan he's sure he'll be a great husband. Then, out of the blue, he asks if Jinhan loves Eesuh. Jinhan is taken aback by the question, but Taejoh explains he's sure Jinhan will love her, especially after seeing the bracelet Eesuh wears on Taejoh's hand. Taejoh gets upset, saying he doesn't even love her but he's still going to marry her. He questions if she'd want to marry him if she knew that. Jinhan responds by saying that making mistakes and learning from them is just a normal part of life. He asks Taejoh not to worry about their relationship and mentions he's going inside now. Days later, Taejoh sits with his friends, drinking and celebrating one of their birthdays. One of them remarks that Taejoh actually showed up, mentioning that he bet $50 that Taejoh wouldn't come. They wonder why he looks so tired though, especially since they heard he won the bid for the downtown duty-free shop. One of them mentions that Taejoh's cousin recently got engaged to Eesuh. Another guy adds that he read about it in an article and was surprised. Someone else chimes in, praising Eesuh for being impressive. They discuss how Eesuh attended all those matchmaking events and now she's snagged a big catch. But wait, wasn't she dating Taejoh before? Did she have both Haitian and HSDC in her hands and then decide to go with HSDC? Taejoh starts to get annoyed and tells the guy to be careful with his words. Another guy pipes up, saying Taejoh had talked about bringing her down a notch, but now it looks like he's the one who got knocked down. Then, someone else suggests they stop talking about it, pointing out that Taejoh would never let himself get swept away by someone else. They doubt that a guy like Taejoh would ever fall in love. Just then, they spot Jinhan and Eesuh. Taejoh suddenly gets up and heads outside, leaving the others wondering where he's off to. Taejoh stands upstairs, watching Eesuh from a distance. Eesuh sits with Jinhan, and he asks if she likes the music. She admits she doesn't know much about music. Jinhan responds, saying he likes it because it's lively and upbeat, ensuring they'll have a good time. Eesuh then remembers Jinhan mentioned having something important to discuss, and she realizes she has something important to tell him too. Jinhan reassures Eesuh that she doesn't need to confess anything. He believes what's done is done, and everyone has a past. As long as she's not stuck in the past, he's okay with it. Jinhan adds that she doesn't have to tell him everything all the time, they just need to focus on fulfilling their responsibilities. While they're listening to the song, Jinhan suddenly kneels down and presents a ring. He tells Eesuh that he believes they'll be great together, so he asks her to start fresh with him. With that, he slips the ring onto her finger. Meanwhile, Taejoh stands nearby, watching silently. Suddenly, one of Taejoh's friends starts insulting and speaking badly about Eesuh. Taejoh gets angry and ends up getting into a fight with him, and their friends try to break it up. Outside the restaurant, Taejoh sits on the ground, feeling conflicted. In his thoughts, he wonders if Eesuh should have accepted the ring. Does she really love Jinhan? Jihan and Eesuh step out of the restaurant. Jinhan asks Taejoh what he's doing there. Taejoh glances at Eesuh and the ring, then stands up and says he just had some business to take care of. Jinhan mentions they're about to leave. Taejoh didn't realize that the feeling bubbling up inside him as he watched Eesuh walking beside Jinhan was actually fury. It's only now that he's starting to understand that the constant dizzy feeling in his head is actually love. He feels foolish for not recognizing the difference between anger and love. Ironically, he's in love, but it's a one-sided, long-lasting love that he never realized until now. At the art center, Eesuh gazes at her favorite art piece, feeling trapped and unsure of what to do next. She knows she has to get ready, but part of her wants to flee. Suddenly, Taejoh shows up and heads straight to Eesuh. He confronts her, asking why she's going to such lengths, grabbing her in the process. Is he the only one who doesn't get it? Is he the only one feeling angry about this situation? No matter how much he mulls it over, it just doesn't sit right with him. Eesuh then pulls her hand away and questions why all of this matters now. She admits she's the one who doesn't understand why he's acting this way. Taejoh responds by asking if she truly doesn't care. She points out that isn't this what he wanted all along? No lingering attachments, just a clean break. She suggests keeping things simple and without any guilt toward each other. Anything more than that just gets irritating. They're simply returning to their old selves before they met, and this type of ending seems fitting for them. As she starts to leave, he grabs her hand and insists she end her engagement. He gives her the choice, does she want to call it off herself, or should he do it? But she responds that it doesn't matter. She pleads with him to stop, explaining that her whole life she's been looked down upon as the daughter of a waitress and a disgraceful daughter. Continuing, she expresses how she's always felt like she had to make up for just being alive. She's always felt like she's had to hold her breath, never really living or doing anything because she truly wanted to. How could someone who's only ever experienced love their whole life understand what that's like? Taejoh suggests that she should have come to him for help. He insists that Jinhan doesn't truly love her, and he won't be able to give her the kind of love she truly desires. However, she starts to mention working on their relationship, but he interrupts, stating that he'll be the one to give her that love she seeks. After all, what they have together means nothing. He suggests they should build that love together. Those were the words she longed to hear the most. But she can't bring herself to do it. She doesn't believe this mess could ever be love. She confesses that, to her, he once shined so brightly. She thought that if she held on to him, even just for a moment, she might be able to shine too. Continuing, she explains that initially, it started as an act of rebellion. But over time, he became the only person she felt she could truly be herself around. Despite his selfishness and tendency to do whatever he pleased, he was the only one who truly understood her. She's grateful for his genuine comfort during difficult times. But they've reached a point where she doubts she could even smile, even if she were to receive his love. Just then, Taejoh's mom steps out and asks them what they think they're doing. Taejoh suggests to his mother that they should have a talk. They sit down at the cafe area, and she asks him to explain what's been happening. She mentions hearing that he's been going to the art center a lot lately, and she also heard about him getting into a fight with the eldest son of Me Assets. She's puzzled and wants to know what's going on in his head. Taejoh admits that it's true, he has feelings for Eesuh. His mom reacts with shock, questioning if he's lost his mind. She urges him to pull himself together, reminding him that Eesuh is going to be his cousin-in-law. She can't fathom how something like this could happen within their family. Taejoh explains that he's been struggling to stay patient. Every day, he has to talk himself out of the idea of kidnapping Eesuh and running away with her. His mom reacts with disbelief, asking if he's lost his mind. She reminds him about their engagement announcement in the newspaper, emphasizing that everyone has read it. The news of their engagement has spread throughout the entire country. Taejoh smiles and confesses his love for Eesuh. With nothing more to say, he decides to leave. At his grandfather's house, he urges him to call off the engagement because Eesuh is someone he's been dating. His grandfather's response is dismissive, saying it doesn't matter. It's not like she's expecting his child or anything, so he should just forget about her. It's all in the past now. His grandfather questions if Taejoh has lost his mind, expressing disbelief that he would act this way over a woman. He wonders if Taejoh plans to destroy the family because of her. Taejoh responds by reminding his grandfather that he summoned him here expecting something like this. Nevertheless, he never intended to seek his permission for his feelings. His grandfather's anger flares up as he insists that Taejoh can't just take someone's heart, it has to be given freely. He points out that Taejoh has never experienced losing something important, so he might not understand this. Despite his feelings for her, he must also show respect for her by allowing her to make her own decisions. His grandfather insists that if Taejoh truly loves her, he'll let her go. He believes Taejoh will eventually forget about her. Taejoh responds by saying that if he could forget her after some time, then it wouldn't be love. He explains that he's never experienced any losses since he was born. So, he doesn't understand why he should lose something as precious as his love for her. He's determined not to lose her. If this is true love, then that's what he has to do. Inside his car, he tries calling Eesuh's number, but it's not available. He feels like a stalker, like a total idiot. It's like his whole body is frozen in place. He realizes he could have treated her better. He wishes he had started treating her better a long time ago. Just one more chance, he thinks. Lee-hun knocks on Taejoh's car door and suggests they have a chat. He questions why Taejoh is searching for Eesuh here, pointing out that Taejoh might not understand the difficult situation she's facing right now. Taejoh wonders aloud if Eesuh can even breathe living like this. Lee-hun responds sharply, saying it's none of Taejoh's business. He warns Taejoh not to come looking for her again, emphasizing that Eesuh chose this path. Taejoh insists on being truthful, Eesuh didn't choose this path herself. He reveals that Jinhan doesn't truly love Eesuh, and she won't find happiness with him. Lee-hun then questions Taejoh about his own feelings for Eesuh and whether he thinks his family will accept her. He points out that Taejoh won't be able to make her happy, and there's no changing the decision that's been made. Therefore, he advises Taejoh to stop wasting his time. Taejoh declares that he's willing to risk everything for Eesuh. Lee-hun questions if Taejoh intends to abandon his family, emphasizing that he's not expecting anything in return. At Eesuh's home, she eats with her mother. Eesuh mentions that she wants to postpone the engagement party. Her mom asks what she means by that. Eesuh explains that she's been thinking about it for a while and feels she needs some more time. Her mom reassures her, saying it's just normal pre-wedding nerves, and many brides feel the same way. Then, she mentions that she's meeting with Mr. Ryu later today. She suggests talking with him more to ease his worries. She acknowledges that her father has high hopes for this meeting. She feels like she's finally doing her part for the family. She advises herself to start getting ready so she won't be late. As Eesuh gets up, she accidentally knocks over a glass on the floor. While trying to clean it up, she cuts her finger on a piece of glass. Her mom reminds her that she should let the maids handle tasks like that. She then calls for the maid to come and clean up the mess. Taejoh sits inside the car with Hung. He mentions that he promised to give him a break if he won the duty-free bid. Hung responds, questioning if that's why Taejoh spent extra time snooping around someone else's house. He then emphasizes that the real competition is just beginning. Taejoh needs to ensure that his bid representation is top-notch. Additionally, Hung wants him to take charge of the e-commerce business headquarters. Hyung adds that he also wants Taejoh to prepare the chairman's memoir and have it finished by early next year. But there's more, he needs Taejoh to visit him in Jeju next week. He wants Taejoh to check out the place before they finalize the Jeju Branch Art Center and hold the ceremony. Taejoh jokingly suggests that his brother should just chain him up already. Hyung responds, expressing his desire for Taejoh to understand the weight of the responsibility he's taking on. As they arrive at their destination, one of the staff members talks to Hyung, while Taejoh silently reflects that during moments like this, Eesuh feels like she's drifting further away from him. In a world without her, nothing seems to hold any meaning. Suddenly, a large portrait falls on Taejoh, knocking him out. As he loses consciousness, he mutters that she has to stay by his side. Meanwhile, at the Haitian hotel, Jinhan asks Eesuh how she's been. She thanks him, mentioning that the engagement preparations are going well. Then, Jinhan inquires about the dress she's wearing. Eesuh responds positively, but he notices that she isn't wearing her engagement ring. He tells her that time is running out, so if there's anything she wants to say, she should speak up and share her honest thoughts. Just as she's about to respond, Jinhan's phone starts ringing. He takes the call and tells the caller to keep him updated. Eesuh asks if something happened, and he informs her that Taejoh has been injured. She trembles and asks if Taejoh's injury is serious. Jinhan notices that she's really upset, so he sends her the location of where Taejoh is. She stands up and says she can't handle this while feeling so worried. She's really sorry, but before she can finish her sentence, Jinhan suggests that they should break it off. He believes he's making the right decision and hopes she feels the same. He tells her to go ahead. He wonders if he had chosen him, would he have been able to see Eesuh make a face like that for his sake? No, that will never happen. He really hates being a matchmaker. As she presses the doorbell, she thinks to herself that things will be chaotic at home. Her parents and everyone else around will surely condemn her. Just then, Taejoh opens the door. She mentions she heard about the accident, and Taejoh takes her hand, telling her to come inside. Inside the house, she asks him if he was hurt seriously. He reassures her it's not that bad, but questions why she came. She explains she was worried, to which he questions why she would worry about him. She stands up, saying now that she knows he's alright, she'll leave. Taejoh then says, "Who said I was alright?" He confesses that even while he was injured, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He admits he's an idiot, but that's how he feels. He's not alright, so he suggests they stay together here. They should hide somewhere far away together. She tells him she just came to check if he's okay. He pulls her close and asks if that's really all. He suggests they make the mistake, then starts kissing her passionately. They end up on his couch. He confesses his love for her, and she admits inwardly that she loves him too. As they start being intimate, Eesuh thinks to herself she should confess about breaking off her engagement, but the words won't come out. She apologizes, admitting she can't be honest with him, yet she can't resist him either. She feels selfish for still wanting him like this. Taejoh reassures her not to apologize. He acknowledges that he's the one who took his cousin's woman, and he'll bear the consequences for it. Even if he won't be forgiven, he doesn't mind. He sees himself as both her hell and paradise, so wherever they are, they should be together. Later in the evening, they're outside watching the sunset. She feels really happy, which is why she finds it hard to speak up. She doesn't want to ruin his life because of her own selfishness. Taejoh then points out something to her, saying it's a gallery. At the gallery, he asks her if she really loves painting, and she nods, saying she enjoys the feeling of both constraint and freedom. Painting feels like going on a journey to her. He then asks where she wants to go the most, and she replies, the end of the world. They say paradise is there, a place where everyone can find happiness. He then asks if she wants to go, saying he'll take her. She turns and walks away, and he follows, catching up with her. He hugs her and suggests they run away together, to a place where no one else is, and live there together. She doesn't respond, and he teases her, calling her a doormat for not answering. She just responds with a casual yeah. He asks her once more if she wants to escape with him to paradise, then starts kissing her. It feels like her first love is slipping away, and it hurts. The next morning, Taejoh wakes up but doesn't find Eesuh in bed. He checks his phone and notices over 400 missed calls. Opening a message from Jinhan, he reads that Jinhan's engagement has been called off. At Eesuh's home, her father slaps her and asks what kind of daughter she is, and why there are rumors about her engagement being called off. Lee-hun tries to calm his father down, but their mother reminds him that she had warned him about this. The mother gestures to her dress and asks where he thinks her blood went. It's in Taejoh, who doesn't even understand grace or good judgment. Eesuh then says she chose to end things herself. With tears in her eyes, she asks them to respect her decision. She goes on to say she hasn't done anything wrong. All she's ever done is what they've told her. She's never asked for anything or even thought about herself. She just figured the only way she could help the family is by getting married. But now, she wants to live her own life. She wants to value her own life and emotions, but her father slaps her again. Is it really so bad for her to want to live her own life? But she doesn't have the right to do that, according to him. It's so miserable. Alone on the floor, she feels like she wants to throw up. At the clinic, the doctor tells Eesuh she's 7 weeks pregnant. She points out where the baby is. Eesuh asks if it's possible to get pregnant even though she's been taking birth control regularly. The doctor explains that there are cases where it happens. She reassures Eesuh that the baby is growing nicely. She decides that from now on, she needs to eat well and focus on taking care of herself during pregnancy. Staying relaxed is important so the baby inside her can grow up healthy. Leaving the clinic, Eesuh recalls the night she and Taejoh went to the ocean, the same night it happened. Her phone rings and it's Taejoh asking where she is. She tells him, and he says he'll come over right away. At Taejoh's house, he gently touches her face and notices she looks pale. Concerned, he asks if she's been eating properly. When he sees a mark on her face, she quickly explains that she fell. Taejoh suggests she should stay with him for a while instead of going back home, but she dismisses the idea, calling it ridiculous. He tells her he's aware her engagement ended, which he thinks is a positive development. Taejoh suggests they should seek approval from both their families for marriage, assuring her he'll handle everything. He expresses his desire to marry her and spend each day catering to her needs. He suggests maybe it's too soon to talk about marriage. Instead, he proposes they go to Jeju Island and date for a year. Taejoh promises he'll never hurt her again and asks her to trust him just this once. Eesuh agrees with a nod. Suddenly, Taejoh's phone starts ringing, but he decides not to answer it. Eesuh asks who's calling, and he explains that there's a fire at the art center on Jeju Island. They're urging him to go there immediately, but he insists on staying with her. She reminds him that he has responsibilities to take care of. Taejoh leaves for Jeju Island, and Eesuh receives a message from Taejoh's mom asking her to come to the art center. When she arrives, Taejoh's mom explains that she wanted to talk to her about something important. There's an internship program at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Taejoh's mom recommends Eesuh to apply for it and says she'll write a recommendation letter. Eesuh says she'll think about it. Taejoh's mom then advises her to stop visiting her son's home. Eesuh says she gets it and assures Taejoh's mom she won't do anything to make her fret. Then, she stands up and promises to be careful not to cause any concern. Eesuh feels like she's just a dark cloud overshadowing Taejoh's brightness. She holds her stomach, tears welling up in her eyes as she feels a sharp pain. In her house, her mom grabs her hand, holding up two outfits. She comments that one looks too flashy, and the other appears too plain. Eesuh questions her mom's actions, and she responds by saying that starting tomorrow, Eesuh will be attending matchmaking events to find a suitable partner and get married. Her mom adds that even her father agreed, saying they should marry her off to anyone willing to take her. Her mom then asks her how much embarrassment she plans to cause the family. Eesuh angrily throws the clothes on the floor, declaring that she won't attend any more matchmaking events. Her mom responds, asking if she doesn't understand her responsibilities to the household. Eesuh then says she gets it. She's supposed to be like a tool, doing whatever she's told for the sake of the family. But she's not going to do that anymore. Just as her mom is about to slap her, she blurts out that she's pregnant. Her mom then asks whose child it is, and she says it's hers. Her mom laughs, saying it's a good thing her engagement was called off then. If she was engaged in this condition, their family would never have been able to recover. After all, she looks just like her mother, so it's in her nature to sleep around. The day she accepted her into the family was the biggest mistake of her life. Eesuh then says she'll make sure to live well. Outside, her brother says to her that he heard she's leaving, then shouldn't she also let Taejoh know? She then says she can never tell him. She's sure Taejoh would come after her, but what about her child? Would it be able to live comfortably here, or will it live its entire life hearing how meeting her was a big mistake on Taejoh's part? Then that child will have to live erasing themselves just like she did. She can't ruin Taejoh's life or her child's life. Her brother then says he hopes she can be happy, and she says she's going to be happy from now on. This is the first decision she's made in her life, that's why she needs his help. Taejoh's stay on Jeju Island keeps getting longer. There's so much to do. If he's going to officially recognize Eesuh as a part of their family, he has to work hard. In his room, he tries calling Eesuh, but her number isn't available. He sends her a series of messages about how he's working so hard because of her. Finally, Eesuh replies that she misses him too. At the Korea International Airport, Lee tells Eesuh that she must be tired. She responds, saying he's probably even more tired because of her. He then asks if she's figured out her plans yet. She replies, saying she'll start by traveling around Ushuaia for a bit and then head to Malta. She keeps talking, saying after chilling in Ushuaia, she'll hit up Cape Roca and then cruise through Spain on her way to France. Her brother chimes in, saying that's a lot of traveling. He asks where she plans to settle down. She replies, saying she hasn't made up her mind yet. She just wants to see and do a bunch of stuff first. Then, she gently touches her stomach and mentions how things might get tougher as time passes. He responds, saying that once she figures out where to call home, she should give him a heads up. She nods, and he offers her his card, saying their mom handed it to him. He mentions that she once mentioned how tough it is for a single mom to raise a child on her own, no matter what. It seems like she's been making monthly deposits on the 10th for the past 17 years. Then, he explains that their mom wasn't tough on her because she didn't care, but because of the tough circumstances she was in. With tears in her eyes, Eesuh agrees, saying she understands. In fact, she knows their mom waited for her that one time she ran away from home. Normally, their mom hits the hay at 9, but that night she stayed up until midnight, worrying about her. So, she explains that's why she always aimed to be a good daughter. She wanted to be strong so nobody would have to fret about her. Then, she hands her phone to her brother, saying she doesn't feel confident taking it with her. If Taejoh calls, he shouldn't spill anything about her. Then, she leaves, and he waves goodbye to her. Over at Jeju Island, Taejoh keeps calling Eesuh, but she doesn't pick up. Finally, someone answers and he asks why Eesuh isn't picking up. The person on the other end says Eesuh is gone, and they hope he never sees her again. Shortly after, Taejoh storms into Lee's office. He demands to know what Lee meant by saying Eesuh is gone. Lee explains that until yesterday morning, they were texting and staying in touch. They even made plans to meet up. So, it doesn't make sense for her to suddenly disappear like this. Lee-hun responds with a shrug, indicating he doesn't have much else to say. Taejoh presses further, demanding to know where she is. Lee explains that she's gone off to find her own path in life, so he should just let her be. Taejoh, frustrated, slams his hand on the table, pleading with Lee-hun to give him the truth. Lee-hun responds by saying if she went to such lengths, Taejoh should understand. He admits he's tried to reach out to her many times and failed, so he needs to check his ego. He confesses that he doesn't really know much about Eesuh, which is why he's always left feeling regretful. Taejoh then reminds him of their previous conversation, asking how far he's willing to go for her. Taejoh declares that he's determined to marry Eesuh, even if it means scouring all of Korea to find her. He's adamant about not losing her and vows to search to the ends of the earth and beyond if needed. He promises to take care of her for the rest of his life. Lee-hun suggests that he should put those impressive skills to use and track her down. Taejoh spots the pregnancy scan, glances at it, and then heads out. Sitting in his car, he tells himself he just needs to find Eesuh. Suddenly, the guy he had a scuffle with weeks ago blocks his path. Taejoh steps out of his car and asks the guy if he's looking for trouble. The guy grabs Taejoh and complains that he lost all his money because of him, specifically mentioning the game investment. Taejoh fires back, asking why he's putting the blame on him. He sarcastically questions if the guy's head is only there for decoration. Taejoh tells the guy to stop bothering him and to just go away. He hops into his car, muttering that he doesn't have time for this nonsense. Suddenly, the guy gets into his own car and smashes into Taejoh's car. While Taejoh is unconscious, he has a flashback to high school where he sees Eesuh. When he wakes up, his mom anxiously informs him that he's awake. She talks to Taehan, expressing concern about Taejoh's condition. Taehan reassures her, saying that Taejoh hasn't spoken a word in over a week. He adds that they did a CT scan and all the test results came back normal. Taehan reveals that the guy who crashed into Taejoh was Sunghyun Kim from Me Asset. He mentions that Sunghyun used to be a fan of Taejoh's. Taehan adds that Sunghyun's drug test came back positive. He advises Taejoh not to forgive Sunghyun and not to settle the case. The next moment, Taejoh simply says he wants to leave the hospital. He sits up, and his mom asks what he's up to. Taejoh responds that he has to find Eesuh. His mom then angrily asks what Eesuh means to him. Taejoh shouts at her to leave him alone. Taejoh speaks up, questioning if it's really so wrong to want to be with the person he loves. He doesn't care about Eesuh's family situation. Taehan reminds him that it's been a while since she left him. Taejoh expresses how he feels like he's going to collapse. Without Eesuh, he feels like he'll die. Taejoh declares that he's willing to give up all his rights and duties at Haitian. He tells his mom to just hate him. She responds, telling him to do whatever he wants. Taejoh then gets up and walks out of the hospital. Taejoh heads straight to Lee's office, hobbling from his injuries. He starts by asking for forgiveness, addressing Lee respectfully as Sir. He then kneels down and promises to beg for forgiveness for anything he's done wrong until his last breath. Taejoh pleads for a chance to make things right, so he won't end up regretting his foolish actions again in the future. Taejoh admits that he's given up everything, including his wealthy family and all his possessions. All he cares about now is finding Eesuh, so he begs Lee for help. He emphasizes that he, the once powerful Taejoh from Haitian, has let go of everything without putting up a fight or holding on to any pride. He's willing to surrender everything to Lee for the sake of Eesuh. Lee Hun hands Taejoh a piece of paper, explaining that Eesuh left with no plans to come back to Korea. He gives Taejoh her address, urging him to make sure he can bring her back and stand by her proudly. Taejoh stands up, thanking Lee for the information. Eesuh finds herself in Ushuaia, a port city at the very bottom of the world. She feels like every second here is the end of the world. Gently touching her stomach, she talks to her baby, saying they're experiencing the end of the world together. Looking at the lighthouse in the distance, Eesuh finds it ironic that it's considered the true end of the world. She reflects on being at the edge of the world, where everything truly ends. She sees the lighthouse as a place to let go of all the sad memories. Eesuh tosses her bracelet into the sea, hoping it will take away her sadness. She believes that coming here will lead to their happiness. Eesuh thinks that sometimes things have to end so that something new can start. She believes they can start fresh at this end. As she walks away from the sea, she spots Taejoh. Taejoh rushes to hug her, telling her he missed her. She pushes him away, surprised at how he found her there. Ignoring her protests, he leans in and kisses her. She pushes him again, urging him to leave. But he insists she should come with him, as he came to take her back. In Eesuh's apartment, Taejoh asks her how far along she is. She replies that it's none of his business. He argues that of course it concerns him, as he's the father. Eesuh insists that she's going to take care of the baby on her own, just the two of them. Taejoh tells her not to be absurd, asking if she plans to roam around with his child forever. Eesuh tells Taejoh to stay out of it, she'll handle whatever comes next. Taejoh questions if running away to the other side of the world is really taking care of things. He suggests she pack her bag. Eesuh responds, frustrated, saying everything seems easy for him. She worries that if she settles there, her child will end up living the same life she did. Standing up, Eesuh declares that she has nothing more to say. Taejoh grabs her hand, urging her not to do this, to stop running away. She objects, telling him not to call it that, reminding him that she left her whole life behind to come here. Later that evening, Taejoh sits in his car, feeling saddened. He thought Eesuh left to live in paradise, but now she's arrived here looking like a refugee, barely escaping. It hurts him to see her struggle just to survive. Before he met her, he didn't pay attention to the changing seasons or the passing of time. Now, he feels everything deeply. The nights feel cold and lonely, and he's scared. Just then, a lady knocks on his car door. She tells him he'll freeze to death if he sleeps outside and invites him inside. Taejoh thanks her, and she explains she doesn't have a spare room at the moment. Taejoh reassures her, saying he's fine with sleeping in the living room. He struggles to fall asleep, so he decides to go upstairs. As he approaches Eesuh's apartment, he hears sounds coming from inside. He came here with the hope of making her happy, but instead, he's made her cry again. He wonders how many nights she's spent alone like this, even before they met and now after. He worries that if he approaches her now, she'll run even farther away. He doesn't want to be abandoned by her. He's terrified of losing her. Taejoh knocks on her door and asks if he can come in. He admits that he was wrong and that everything was his fault. He regrets all the times he treated her thoughtlessly. He wishes he had understood how she felt, so she wouldn't have felt the need to run away here. He believed they could overcome anything as long as they were together. He thought that by coming here, all of her problems would vanish. To him, as long as he has her, nothing else matters, despite what others might say. He only imagined the happiness they would have together. That's how he's always been, living without considering anything else. He never thought about how much she'd be hurt or the pain she'd be going through. It didn't even occur to him why she'd need to escape to a faraway place to find happiness. He admits he was selfish, like an idiot. Now, he realizes just a little bit how she must have felt. She was all alone, with nobody in the world to lend a hand. He understands how painful and lonely that must have been for her. In his mind, he knows he should just let her do whatever makes her happy and wish for her to find joy in this place, even if it's just a small smile. But he can't bring himself to let her go. Without her, he feels empty. He's sorry he pushed her to come all the way here. He regrets making her wait because of his selfish desires. He promises to wait for her. The next morning, the friendly lady knocks on Eesuh's door. She notices that Eesuh seems to be starting her day a bit late but advises her not to skip breakfast. She hands Eesuh a food platter. The lady then mentions that Taejoh was planning to sleep in his car. She apologizes for being nosy but adds that he left this morning. Eesuh then asks the lady where Taejoh went, but she admits she's not sure because she didn't ask. After the lady leaves, Eesuh tells herself to pull herself together. Where Taejoh goes has nothing to do with her. She reminds herself that everything he said yesterday was sincere. Despite feeling hurt, she wonders what she should do next. With bitterness still lingering in her heart, Eesuh wishes she could avoid seeing Taejoh for a while. As she heads out, she spots him and he asks where she's going. Ignoring him, she continues walking while he follows along. How long will he keep following her? He's managed to ruin her whole life here in just one day. She decides to duck into a cafe, planning to buy something. But before she can, Taejoh steps in and pays for 2 cones of ice cream. Confused, she asks him what he's doing. He responds, saying she's finally talking to him. He hands her the ice cream, but she insists she wants to be alone and asks him not to interfere. However, he continues to trail after her. It's like he's ignoring her words and doing whatever he pleases. Despite being in an unfamiliar place, it oddly feels like just another ordinary day. As she pauses to grab some fruit, Taejoh swiftly helps her pack it. He mentions that pregnant women shouldn't be lifting heavy things. She explains that she was going to buy 2 of them. Taejoh responds, reminding her that she needs to feed the baby too. She takes a bite of the apple and wonders to herself if he's really her husband. Every time she leaves, he just ends up getting hurt again. Suddenly, she wobbles, and Taejoh rushes to hold her, asking if she's okay. Then, he suggests they go home. In Eesuh's house, Taejoh washes the apple. Inside, he wishes he could easily apologize to her and give her a hug. He longs to be closer to her and take care of her. He knocks on her door, letting her know he brought some apples since she didn't eat dinner. Getting no response, he enters and finds her in a terrible state. Quickly, he rushes her to the hospital. In the hospital, Taejoh staggers and collapses to the floor, his clothes stained with blood. He reassures himself that it's nothing and everything will be okay. Hours later, the doctor emerges and informs him that she's been moved to a recovery room. Taejoh quickly inquires about the baby, and the doctor reassures him that the baby is safe. It appears that the mother's excessive stress caused her to start bleeding. He tells Taejoh that if he had arrived a moment later, the baby might not have made it. Taejoh then enters the recovery room. He calls Eesuh, but she tells him to leave. Ignoring her, he holds her hand, but she shouts, blaming him for everything. She insists that this happened because he came here and that she ran away because of him. She's got something precious she wants to keep safe, so why is he interfering with her life? Why does he keep bothering her? In the end, he doesn't understand anything. She tells him to leave, she doesn't want to see him again. As she cries, he moves closer and hugs her tightly, but she insists he should leave. Ignoring her request, he holds her firmly and apologizes. She asks why he keeps causing her pain and wonders if he'll only be satisfied if she loses everything and ends up completely ruined. She traveled this far intentionally, and she's feeling distraught. She traveled all the way to the end of the world, but now that he's followed her here, she doesn't know where to go next. He tells her that crying like this isn't good for the baby. She blames him, saying it's his fault. She admits that she really hates him because he's so selfish and awful. He asks if she still hates him, but even if that's all she feels, he's glad. Holding her hand, he tells her he wants to be with her. He admits he can't live without her, even if it feels like his body is burning up inside or his blood is drying out. He just wants to stay by her side. He never once thought their relationship was over. She mentioned she gave up everything to come here, and he's done the same, betting his entire life on her. He's determined to protect their first and possibly last child. He reassures her that he'll always be by her side. She simply expresses her desire to live happily from now on. She's fed up with always stressing about what others think and having to endure everything. All she wants is to live a normal and happy life. He promises to give her exactly that. For her and their child, he vows to ensure she always feels loved and happy, no matter where they are. This is the first decision she's ever made for herself, so he's decided to prioritize her above all else. They then share a tight hug, expressing their closeness and support for each other. Days later in the hospital, Taejoh peels apples for Eesuh. She mentions wanting to wash up, but he insists on doing it for her. Taejoh takes charge and washes her hair, joking that he's got a talent for hair washing and apple cutting too. Then, he thanks the baby for hanging in there, showing his gratitude for their resilience. Later that evening, he drives her back to her house. She asks if he's not coming inside, and he questions why. She thinks he's busy and assumes being away for this long is tough for him. He explains that he doesn't have anywhere else to go. Since she just got discharged from the hospital, and he doesn't have a room to stay in, he planned on spending the night in his car. She tells him he should do whatever he wants. He responds by hugging her tightly, declaring that he's not leaving and intends to stay by her side forever. He teases her, saying she knows how to get irritated too. She denies being irritated and points out that it's cold outside, questioning why he would sleep outdoors. Now she gets it. She ran all the way to the end of the world, hoping to find a warm and cozy place where she could feel comfortable, even if it's just for a little while. Inside her room, Taejoh wishes her good night. She invites him to come to bed, and he happily joins her, laughing. He tells her to get some sleep and reassures her that he's not going anywhere. Finally, she realizes that the warm and cozy place she's been longing for all this time is in Taejoh's arms. Living with someone who feels the same way and going through life together, sharing the same air and sky, might seem like an everyday thing to some. But for others, it's a moment worth risking everything for. So for him, her only wish and happiness are clear: she loves him and is ready to dedicate every moment of her life to him. The next morning, Eesuh wakes Taejoh up excitedly and urges him to look out the window. She exclaims that it's like paradise outside. She's his paradise. At the start of a typical day at the end of the world, they've chosen to find happiness right there, in a place where it's hard to come by. Whenever she calls, it feels like a breeze in his life. Whenever she's around, it's like being in paradise, and that feeling will last until his very last breath. 2 months later, in Malta, Taejoh and Eesuh sit together. They chat about different places, foods, and their baby, sharing laughs and enjoying each other's company. Taejoh notices a lazuli, explaining that it's meant to protect those at sea. He places it on her tummy, and she points out that the baby is inside her, not in the sea. He reassures her, saying he'll protect the baby no matter what. This is what special moments feel like. Before he met her, he had no idea what it was like to create cherished memories. He feels grateful to have met her and to experience these moments. Suddenly, his mother calls him, so he steps aside to answer the phone. His mom expresses her concerns, asking when he plans to come home. He admits he's unsure when he'll return, and she mentions she's heard about Eesuh's pregnancy from Taejoh. Confirming it, he explains it's true. His mom suggests he come home so they can discuss everything, and he questions if she'll accept Eesuh. She insists they'll have to because she's pregnant. He decides that when he returns, he'll marry Eesuh right away. Also, he asks his mom to secure a position for him at an affiliate company so he can support his family. Additionally, he insists that Eesuh should be reinstated at the art center and even suggests giving the art center to her. Before his mother can respond, he abruptly ends the call. Eesuh inquires if the call was from Korea, and he confirms it, mentioning that his mom wants to see her. He notes that his mother's temper hasn't changed. Eesuh wonders if it's alright for her to be away from her family's company for so long, considering she already submitted her resignation, but he interrupts. He reassures her, saying he already told his mom not to worry. Lee-hun advised him to ensure that she stands proudly by his side when they return home together. During dinner that evening, he surprises her with a gift box. She opens it to find a shackles bracelet inside. He explains that it symbolizes eternal love, suggesting she should never take it off. Then, he tosses the screw away. He then asks her when she wants to set the date for when they're going back. She mentions that her brother reached out to her, eager for her to return. Taejoh holds her hand and tells her he's flexible, as long as he's with her, he's happy to go along with whatever she decides. Later, she goes to talk to him in their room but finds him on the bed, shivering. She touches his head and asks if he's okay, wondering if he's in a lot of pain. The effects of the car accident seem to still be bothering him. He insists he's not sick, but she notices he's burning up. He brushes it off, saying he normally runs hot. She tells him to stop with the nonsense and take something to lower his fever. He jokes that being sick isn't so bad with her taking care of him. She scolds him, saying he shouldn't joke around like that, especially when he's making a pregnant woman nurse him. She warns that when the baby's born, she'll tell them all about how he made her do this. She tells him he's truly awful, and he responds by holding her hand, saying she should tell everything to everyone. He insists she should tell them how terrible he was to her, so they'll always support her. But he promises he'll always be on her side too. While she's trying to speak, he interrupts her with a kiss. He admits he doesn't have the right words because he loves her immensely. She then suggests they return to Korea, feeling fearless now that she has him by her side. He expresses gratitude for her trust. As they kiss, he suddenly sits up to grab his phone. She wonders what he's up to, and he explains he wants to check which week of her pregnancy it's safe for them to be intimate. He doesn't want to risk hurting her or the baby. After checking, he announces they're good to go, and she playfully calls him an idiot as they continue kissing. As they finish, she rests on him, feeling peaceful inside. Finally, she's experiencing ordinary, peaceful days, and it's making her so happy she can hardly believe it. Suddenly, Taejoh pops the question, asking her to marry him. Tears well up in her eyes as she looks at him and softly says, "Okay." He hugs her tightly, thanking her with a grateful heart. They're in a moment they can't go back to, in a place where they feel like the happiest people in the world. They decide to cherish this time together a little while longer. He never used to stay the night with anyone before, but now he can't sleep without Eesuh beside him. It's surprising how much he relies on her now. He really can't imagine surviving without her anymore. At Haesung-won, Taejoh talks to his grandfather. He tells him Eesuh is pregnant and about 20 weeks along, and it's a boy. The grandfather then says he heard Eesuh is here too and she should come inside. Taejoh then asks him to please tell him what he would like to say to her. He admits he doesn't know much about pregnancy, but it's not a good idea to tell pregnant women to move around. He then mentions that he's heard even kings can't order pregnant women around. His grandfather responds, saying he wasn't going to say anything mean to her. Taejoh explains he's just worried his grandfather might nag her. Then, he shows his grandfather a picture of the baby. He takes the photo and suggests that his grandfather should grant him an affiliate. After all, if he becomes the head of his own household, he'll need to make a living. The grandfather then asks if he wasn't prepared to give up his place in the family when he left. Taejoh responds, saying he guesses there's nothing more to say to someone who doesn't care if his great-grandchild has enough to eat. His grandfather then takes the picture and compliments the baby. He tells Taejoh to make sure to take good care of his son and to have the wedding ceremony before her belly gets any bigger. He urges them to hurry up and move in together. Taejoh then says he's already prepared everything. He jokes with his grandfather, asking him to make sure to give him a lot of congratulatory money later on. He suggests it would be nice if his grandfather gave him a building in the Sinsa area. His grandfather chuckles and tells him to get out. Eesuh sits with Taejoh's mom, and his mom admits that she understood things when Taejoh said he was leaving to find her. She realized that for their child to be happy, Taejoh needed to be by her side. She apologizes for the harsh things she said earlier, explaining that she didn't mean to just brush it off with a simple apology. She hopes they can gradually grow closer from now on. His mom then mentions the baby, so Eesuh shows her a photo of the scan, saying it's their child. At 20 weeks, everything looks good, and it's a boy. Taejoh's mom starts crying and says she'll cherish the picture. In Eesuh's parents' home, Taejoh tells her family that he's going to marry her. He's confident he can make her happy. Her father asks what he means by this, but his wife intervenes, telling him to stop. She then tells Taejoh to take full responsibility for Eesuh. Taejoh reassures her not to worry, and Eesuh's mom wishes her to be happy and well. Eesuh nods and says she'll live a happy life. Taejoh is explaining to Eesuh that they have to go somewhere important together. They eventually arrive at a beautiful house, and Taejoh suggests they enter. As they step inside, Eesuh admires the house and asks whose it is. Taejoh then surprises her by revealing that this lovely house actually belongs to them. He then fondly recalls the time when he went on a trip to Jeju Island. During that trip, he had picked out a special gift just for her, and now in their very own house, it's a moment to reflect on that sweet memory. Taejoh tells Eesuh that it's a bit early for her to be overly surprised and suggests they continue exploring. He guides her into a room, and to her delight, it's actually their baby's room. Taejoh eagerly asks Eesuh what she thinks about the room, wanting her opinion. He then suggests that they work together to decorate and furnish the room, making it just perfect for their little one. They can choose colors, pick out furniture, and create a cozy space filled with love and anticipation for their baby's arrival. As Eesuh lands on the ground, she starts crying, feeling completely overwhelmed by everything around her. Taejoh notices her tears and asks why she's crying. Through her tears, Eesuh explains that it's all too much for her. She feels like she hasn't prepared for any of this and doesn't believe she deserves any of it. Taejoh responds lovingly, expressing that he himself feels undeserving of her. He tries to comfort Eesuh, gently urging her not to cry too much because he's concerned it might upset their baby. Taejoh wants Eesuh to feel at ease and excited about this new chapter in their lives, reassuring her that they'll navigate it together with love and support. Taejoh then extends his hand and assures Eesuh that there's still more to show her. They make their way to a particular part of the house where Eesuh's favorite art piece is proudly displayed. Surprised and curious, Eesuh asks Taejoh how he managed to acquire it. With a smile, Taejoh explains that he was determined to fulfill any wish of hers. In that heartwarming moment, Taejoh suddenly kneels down, presenting a ring in his hand, and asks Eesuh to marry him. Overjoyed, Eesuh enthusiastically accepts, and Taejoh pledges to spend the rest of his life making her happy. It's a promise of love and dedication, sealing their bond in this beautiful setting they now call their own home. Taejoh looks into Eesuh's eyes and expresses how much she means to him, emphasizing that she is everything he wants and needs. He tells her that he loves her deeply and wants her by his side always. As Eesuh finds solace in Taejoh's arms, he promises her once again, with heartfelt sincerity, that every ordinary day they spend together from now on will be like living in an eternal paradise. Taejoh's words convey his deep affection and commitment to Eesuh, assuring her that their relationship will be filled with love, joy, and happiness. He wants her to feel cherished and cherished every moment they share together, creating a beautiful and lasting bond between them. With this beautiful story comes to an end. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, ciao.